Listen close, because this story hits deeper than TV drama. This is family, pain, healing, and regret wrapped in one emotional return. Tamar Braxton finally opened up about coming back to the Braxtons, and the way she spoke. You can hear a woman who walked into a room she once ran from, hoping things would feel different. At first, it looked like a celebration. Cameras rolling, fans cheering, the Braxton name shining again. But what Tamar didn't expect was how quickly old wounds would breathe again. Returning wasn't just filming a show, it was facing versions of herself she had spent years trying to heal from. She thought she was walking into closure, but instead, she walked into memories she wasn't ready to relive. And now, Tamar admits she regrets saying yes. When Tamar Braxton got the call about returning to the new season of the Braxtons, she paused. Not because she didn't love her family, but because love was never the problem. The environment was. She had walked away years ago for her peace, for her healing, for her mental survival. So when producers reached out again, her heart knew there was risk. But sometimes we believe time changes everything. That wounds fade, that maturity fixes history. Tamar thought this time would be different, calmer, safer, grown, a chance to rewrite the ending. A moment to sit as the woman she is now, not the one she used to be. And in the beginning, it really looked like hope. The first week of shooting felt familiar. Laughter in glam chairs, inside jokes, Mother Evelyn checking on everyone like always. Tony, graceful as ever. Tawanda, practical. Trina, goofy. Tamar, louder, softer, wiser all at once. Cameras followed their conversations like old times, and fans celebrated online like family finally came back home. Everyone wanted to see healing, laughter, sisterhood. But healing off camera and healing on camera are not the same thing. Reality TV isn't therapy, it's television, and television survives on storylines, on conflict, on unresolved tension turned into episodes. And slowly, Tamar felt that pressure again. The pressure to react, to respond, to defend. She felt producers' questions lean toward drama. Not, "How are you?" but, "How do you feel about what she did?" Not, "Are you okay?" but, "Do you think the family still blames you?" Soft moments were shortened, tense moments stretched on screen. The edit never shows everything, only what tells the story. And that's where regret began to grow. Tamar said her spirit felt unsettled, like she was stepping back into an emotional space she outgrew, a version of herself she worked so hard to heal from. On camera, she tried to remain calm, breathe, think, choose words carefully. But calm is unfamiliar when your past version was loud. Silence becomes suspicious. Soft becomes shady. Distance becomes drama. One moment stands out. Tamar sitting in a scene meant to address tension. She tried speaking gently, but old pain sat behind her eyes. Her voice didn't shake, but her heart did. The room held years of misunderstandings no episode could fix. She answered, but later cried alone in her trailer because being back felt like opening a book she had already finished reading. Tamar said, "Peace cost me too much to risk again." And that's when regret truly entered. Not because she didn't love the show made them household names. Not because she doesn't love her sisters, she loves them loudly. But being filmed while feeling isn't easy. Vulnerability becomes entertainment. Fans choose sides without context. Clips go viral without healing. And Tamar realized she wasn't ready for her healing journey to be a storyline again. At family dinners on camera, she smiled. But inside, she was processing memories. Seasons from years ago where she felt misunderstood. Fights that should have been solved privately. Tears that became memes. She remembered the pressure to be funny, to be outspoken, to be Tamar, the entertaining one. But sometimes, entertainment hides exhaustion. She said yes, hoping for connection. Hoping for love that felt safe to show publicly. But instead, she found emotional triggers she didn't expect. When sisters disagreed, she panicked. Not because of the moment, but because she imagined how the world would react to it once edited into an episode. She didn't want to be viewed as the troublemaker again. She didn't want to fight. She wanted softness, healing. But cameras don't slow down to let people heal. They highlight where they break. Tamar later admitted she began waking up with anxiety on filming days. Not dramatic, human. Protecting peace is not weakness. Recognizing emotional limits is growth. She realized that coming back didn't mean she was healed. It meant she was strong enough to face what hurt her, but wise enough to walk away again if peace demanded it. Her regret wasn't anger, it was sadness. Sadness that something meant to reunite them reopened old wounds. Sadness that healing sometimes requires privacy TV cannot give. Sadness that love isn't always enough to survive production pressure. She didn't blame her family, she blamed the environment around them. A system that benefits from conflict more than closure. And that is where her regret lives, in the gap between love and peace. She said returning taught her one important truth. Some things heal better off camera. And maybe her regret is not a failure. Maybe it's wisdom. Growth. A lesson she had to learn by walking back into the house she once burned down, just to see if the ashes could bloom. Some did. Others reminded her why she left. If part 1 was Tamar returning with hope, part 2 is where reality settled in. Quietly, slowly, then all at once. Because regret doesn't always arrive with a slam. Sometimes it walks in like a shadow, unnoticed, until you realize the room is darker than before. Tamar said she began noticing small things. Not toxic, not dramatic, but familiar. The same energy she once left to preserve herself. There were moments when Tamar tried to explain her feelings, but explaining healing to people who saw you before the healing is hard. When you grow, you outgrow old roles, but family can still see the version of you they remember. Tamar wasn't the same woman viewers knew from the earlier seasons. She was softer now, more spiritual, more protective of her heart. But the show still needed Tamar the character. Loud, funny, reactive, emotional. And that pressure silently pulled her backward. In a conversation with Tony off camera, Tamar reportedly expressed she was scared of being misunderstood again. Tony listened, calm like always, reminding her she's strong, reminding her family loves her. And Tamar smiled because she knew that love. But love doesn't stop cameras. Love doesn't edit episodes. Love doesn't erase comment sections. Love isn't the problem, exposure is. During filming, producers pushed storylines that needed conflict to move forward. How do you feel about what was said? Do you think she changed? Is there still tension? Innocent questions on paper. Heavy questions when aimed at healing hearts. Tamar answered, but answered carefully, because she didn't want to bleed for ratings. She didn't want pain to trend again. She didn't want to watch Twitter call her dramatic if she cried, or petty if she defended herself. One filming day stands out deeply in her regret. A family discussion about boundaries got heated, not explosive, but emotional. Tamar tried to walk away to breathe, but cameras followed. That familiar feeling, like she couldn't escape the narrative, returned. She later said she went home that night, realizing she wasn't filming a return. She was reliving a chapter she closed. And that realization was heavy. Sometimes growth means you no longer belong in spaces built from your old self. Tamar found herself journaling again between shoot days, writing prayers, affirmations, questions like, was coming back right for me? Am I doing this for healing or for fans? Do I feel safe here? Does my soul feel heard? She wanted the answer to be yes, but every entry sounded like no. Meanwhile, the sisters had their own challenges. Tawanda juggling life responsibilities, Trina balancing career and personal spaces, Tony carrying the pressure of being the eldest and the icon. Everyone was healing in their own way. No villain, no enemy, just women with history. History cannot be escaped, only faced. And Tamar was facing hers publicly. In one scene, a conversation about past misunderstandings resurfaced. The tone wasn't cruel, just sensitive. Tamar felt her voice shake, not from anger, but from the weight of wanting peace, but being pulled into old emotions. She spoke honestly about feeling unsupported years ago. Her sisters listened, some agreeing, some quiet. It was progress. But progress on camera feels different from progress in private. Healing requires slow moments, but reality TV moves fast. Fans online began dissecting teasers, microclips, side glances. Tamar looks uncomfortable here. She doesn't seem happy. Why does she look distant? Comments that confirmed what Tamar already felt internally. She wasn't blending. She was surviving, showing up, smiling, but guarded, protecting her peace while still trying to give the audience what they loved. And here is where regret deepened, when she saw edits of emotional scenes that didn't include her calm parts, her soft explanations, her tender moments. Viewers saw reaction, but not reflection. Pain, but not processing. The show captured fragments of her growth, but highlighted pieces of her trauma. Tamar realized she gave the world her healing journey, but the world still expected her pain to perform. One day after filming, she sat alone in her car and cried. Not because someone hurt her, but because she recognized herself slipping back into someone she no longer wanted to be. She said quietly to herself, "I worked too hard to get here." Here, meaning peace, stability, self-worth not measured by public perception. Silence without needing to defend it. Growth without apology. And that's the heartbreak behind her regret. She didn't regret returning because she hated being there. She regretted returning because she loved her peace more. Being on set felt like rediscovering old emotions she buried to heal. Not because her family was cruel, but because cameras don't allow vulnerability to heal in privacy. Every tear becomes content. Every disagreement becomes preview. Every emotion becomes storyline. Tamar wanted a family reunion, but she walked into a production environment. Sisters first, or castmates first? That line blurred quickly. She started declining certain scenes, setting boundaries, stepping away when conversations felt unsafe. Growth. But boundaries on reality TV feel like resistance. Producers nudged, gently but persistently. Fans wanted Tamar. Ratings wanted Tamar. But Tamar wanted peace. She stayed professional, present, loving, but guarded. You could see her pulling herself inward sometimes, speaking less, listening more, not reacting as she once did. Growth is quiet, but viewers expected noise. Tamar wasn't willing to give noise anymore. After filming Wrapped, she realized something. She didn't return for fame. She already had success. She didn't return for money. She built her own. She returned for closure. But closure can't be captured in episodes. Closure happens in conversations without cameras. Apologies without microphones. Tears without production notes. Tamar left with love, but with a lesson too. Sometimes walking away is not giving up. It's choosing yourself. In interviews later, she didn't drag anyone. She didn't expose secrets. She didn't blame family. She simply said she regrets returning because it reopened emotional spaces she wasn't ready to revisit. A gentle regret. A human regret. She loves her sisters loudly. She protects her peace quietly. And both things can be true. As days of filming continued, Tamar noticed a pattern inside herself, one she hoped she had left in past seasons. It wasn't anger. It wasn't ego. It was self-protection. When old dynamics resurfaced, she found herself emotionally stepping back, smiling less, watching more. Healing changes how you move in spaces that once triggered you. She wasn't the impulsive Tamar the world remembered. She was slower now, gentler, more aware of her own limits. But awareness also meant noticing everything more deeply. She watched her sisters interacting, loving each other, joking, trying to rebuild something that fame had fractured. There were real attempts, hugs after disagreements, quiet talks in corners, late-night dinners where cameras stopped rolling and real family appeared. Tamar cherished those moments, the ones not meant for TV. In those moments, she felt hopeful. But hope is complicated, because just when things felt warm, reality TV reminded her it isn't built for healing, it's built for storytelling. Producers loved moments where Tamar expressed emotion. Not because they wanted her to hurt, but because her emotion created some of the most memorable scenes in Braxton history. But Tamar wasn't that woman anymore. She wasn't returning to be a character, she was returning as a human being. A mother, a survivor, a woman rebuilding self-worth. And when she realized the world still expected her to fill her old role, she felt trapped between who she was and who she is now. One particular scene became a turning point, a discussion about past disagreements, something Tamar believed they had moved beyond. But the moment the topic came up, her heart raced. She remembered the pain of fans attacking her online in previous seasons, the weight of carrying storylines alone, the countless interviews explaining situations out of context. She didn't want to relive that, not publicly. Tamar tried expressing herself calmly, but calm doesn't trend. Calm doesn't go viral. Calm doesn't make episodes stronger. So when she stepped away to breathe, some interpreted it as distance. But it wasn't distance, it was self-respect. It was Tamar choosing not to spill hurt for entertainment. She later said she left the room not because she was angry, but because she loved her family enough not to say things in pain. Healing sometimes means saying nothing. Meanwhile, Tony remained the quiet backbone, strong presence, soft tone, calming energy. She has always been the anchor by example, not instruction. Tawanda tried balancing honesty and sensitivity. Trina wanted peace. Everyone carried their own perspective. No one was the villain. No one was the hero. Family isn't scripted, but TV can make it look like it is. And Tamar realized something crucial. Growth doesn't always fit inside old rooms. When you change, and the environment doesn't, you start to shrink to fit in, or walk away to stay whole. Tamar felt herself shrinking in moments, biting her tongue to avoid conflict, laughing when she wanted to express pain, staying quiet when she wanted to speak truth, participating when her soul wanted rest. She didn't blame anyone, just the circumstances. During off-camera downtime, she sometimes sat alone on her phone, scrolling through encouraging comments from fans who noticed her maturity. People wrote, "Tamar seems calmer now. She's protecting her peace. She looks like she's trying." These words comforted her. They validated the woman she fought to become. But they also highlighted something more painful, that the world saw her trying harder than she should have had to. Healing isn't supposed to feel like performance. Peace isn't meant to be proven. It should be felt. On another filming evening, Tamar had a heart-to-heart with her mother, Miss Evelyn. It wasn't dramatic. It was tender. Evelyn reminded her that God gives lessons not to punish, but to prepare. Tamar listened quietly. She knew returning was a lesson, even if it hurt. Evelyn said something that stuck. Every blessing isn't meant to be repeated. Tamar carried those words home, like a weight and a release at the same time. She began questioning whether returning was closure or reopening, whether it was healing or testing, whether she came back out of desire or expectation. Some nights she prayed for guidance. Some nights she journaled. Some nights she watched old clips of herself and realized she didn't recognize that girl anymore. Loud, defensive, triggered, hurt. She loved that Tamar because that Tamar survived what she couldn't speak. But she wasn't her anymore. Returning made her face her reflection. Not the mirror reflection, but the emotional reflection. The reflection of who she was before therapy, before growth, before boundaries. It's hard to be proud of who you've become while watching an older version of yourself reappear on screen. Tamar feared losing the woman she fought to become. In interviews later, she said, "Sometimes we think going back will give us closure, but it gives us clarity instead. Clarity that some seasons of life are meant to end gracefully, not continued, not revived. Just appreciated for what they gave and released for what they cost." She didn't regret returning to hurt her family. She regretted returning before she healed enough to handle the environment. She regretted believing closure could come from filming instead of from forgiveness. She regretted thinking growth would protect her from old wounds, not realizing healing doesn't erase triggers. It teaches us to walk away from them. And Tamar reached a point where she felt walking away again wasn't quitting. It was honoring herself. Her sisters understood more than viewers know. Conversations were had privately. Emotions were shared softly. Healing couldn't happen in front of the world, but it could begin behind closed doors. Because despite everything, they are family first. Fame second. TV third. Tamar said her regret came from forgetting that her healing was still tender, like a scar not fully closed. Returning put pressure on the wound before it was ready. But in that regret, she found wisdom, strength, compassion for her past self. Sometimes regret teaches what success cannot. She learned that loving her family doesn't require performing her pain. She learned boundaries are love too. She learned her peace deserves protection, even from opportunity. She learned returning isn't always the answer. Sometimes leaving again is. And in that realization, Tamar reclaimed her voice, not through arguments, but through silence, through saying, "I need space," through choosing peace over visibility, through accepting that growth means disappointing expectations sometimes, but it also means saving yourself beautifully. As filming moved toward the later episodes, Tamar began to see her journey through a different lens. Not the camera lens pointed at her, but the internal one she carried in her spirit. She realized something that shifted everything. The show didn't define her anymore. Years ago, the Braxtons was her identity, her platform, her voice. But the woman sitting in front of the camera this time was not the same Tamar who started. She was older, softer, wiser. And wisdom sometimes feels like loss, because healing changes what we tolerate. It was noticeable, even in subtle things, how she no longer clapped back, how she breathed before answering, how she walked away rather than argue. Growth looks boring on TV, but it is powerful in life. She wasn't acting for audience approval anymore. She was moving for peace. On one of the final shoot days, Tamar sat with her sisters on the couch, the same way they've done for over a decade. The producer asked them to talk about the future. Where did they see themselves? As individuals? As a family? As a brand? And that question pierced Tamar deeper than viewers will ever see. Because the future she envisioned didn't look like conflict resolution in episodes. It looked like private brunches, holidays without microphones, family chats where no one was mic'd for a reaction. She wanted intimacy back, not audience interpretation of it. She shared softly, "I want us to be sisters again without the cameras." Not dramatic, not confrontational, just honest. The room fell quiet. Not uncomfortable silence, but the silence where truth sits heavy. Her sisters listened. They felt it too. They've grown, grieved, succeeded, lost. But the world sees only the pieces edited together. Filming wrapped, and Tamar walked outside the studio, breathing fresh air like a woman stepping out of a chapter. She drove home slowly, music low, windows slightly open, thinking not about ratings or clips or scenes, but about herself. What this return meant. Why she felt regret tangled with gratitude. Because regret doesn't mean she wishes it never happened. Regret means she wishes it happened under different circumstances. Looking back, Tamar said she's thankful she returned, because it revealed how far she's come and how much further she wants peace to be protected. She learned that healing is not a destination, it's a practice. It requires boundaries. It requires saying no, even when others expect yes. It requires sometimes disappointing viewers to protect the woman she is without cameras. Her relationship with her sisters isn't broken, it's evolving. Family isn't perfect, especially when millions are watching. But real love isn't measured by episodes. It's measured by understanding. And understanding sometimes happens away from cameras. After returning home from final filming, Tamar sat with her son Logan. Kids have a way of grounding reality instantly. He asked her, "Mom, are you happy?" A simple question, but the answer held her truth. She said yes, but not because of fame or filming. Because she chose herself this time. She showed up, she tried, she loved, she learned. And when she realized her peace was at risk, she didn't push beyond her limit. She honored it. She later told fans in a live interview, "I came back thinking I needed closure, but I left realizing I needed peace more." Those words became a reminder for anyone watching. Sometimes closure is overrated. Peace is the real ending. Tamar isn't running from her family. She's redefining how she loves them. Not through episodes, but through boundaries. Not through filming, but through healing. She forgives. She grows. She learns. She regrets. And yet, she moves forward gracefully. Tamar knows fans want more seasons, more drama, more inside access. But what she wants now is something private, something sacred. Family healing not as entertainment, but as evolution. She wants dinners without producers, arguments that don't become trailers, tears that don't become memes, apologies whispered, not broadcast. Growth nobody scores on social media. Her regret isn't a door slammed, it's a door closed gently with respect on both sides. She has music, she has motherhood, she has love, dreams, spirit. She has a voice bigger than reality TV and a story wider than any season could hold. She is allowed to change, allowed to evolve, allowed to protect peace like treasure. And maybe one day, if the timing is right, if the environment is soft enough and the healing is deep enough, maybe she could return again. But this time, not as a storyline, but as a healed sister. A woman promoting unity, not rehashing old wounds, but only when it doesn't cost her soul to show up. For now, she moves with gratitude and boundaries. She honors what the show gave: fame, connection, memories. But she honors what it took too: emotional energy, mental weight, public judgment. She regrets returning while her healing was fresh, but she doesn't regret loving her family. Love is not the question, exposure is. Tamar said, "Just because you can handle pain doesn't mean you should live in it." And that is where her journey stands today. Not bitter, just wiser. Not broken, just careful. Not distant, just protecting peace she fought hard to build. She still loves, still laughs, still glows. But now she shines in her own space, not under spotlights that dim her growth. She continues therapy, growth, spiritual work. She speaks kindly of her sisters. She chooses healing even when history knocks. The fans who truly love her understand. Because growth looks like choosing quiet over chaos, choosing boundaries over burnout, choosing peace over popularity. In the end, Tamar's regret is not her failure, it's her freedom. A woman who once fought on camera now fights for peace. A singer who once shouted now whispers wisdom. A sister who once reacted now responds with heart. She returned for closure, but what she gained instead was clarity. And sometimes clarity is the gift regret leaves behind. So now that we've unpacked Tamar's journey, the return, the regret, the lessons, the healing, I want you to tell me what you think. Do you feel Tamar made the right choice by stepping back for her peace? Should she ever return to the show again if the environment changes? Or should she keep growing privately, away from the cameras and the pressure of public opinion? Drop your thoughts below. I'm reading every comment. And if you're new here, make sure you hit that like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because we're diving deep into more Braxton family moments, industry truths, emotional stories, and exclusive breakdowns just like this one. Your support keeps this conversation alive and helps us uncover more real conversations behind the spotlight. This ain't just tea, it's growth, healing, and real life unfolding. Stay tuned.